Welcome to another ClimateTech podcast, interviews with the people trying to save us from ourselves. Deniz Ficicioglu is co-founder of BettaFish, makers of plant-based fish products from seaweed. I've had BettaFish on my radar for a few years now, and I've been thrilled to see them go from success to success. We talked about seaweed and tuna, but also about growing communities, trends in grocery retail, and their deal with Japan Airlines. I reached Deniz in Berlin. I'm Ryan Grant Little. Thanks for being here. Welcome to the podcast, Deniz.
Thanks for having me.
So you're the co-founder of BettaFish and Ocean Fruit, and I want you to take a minute and delineate between the two of those as well. Are they different companies or different brands? But both of these make plant-based fish products out of seaweed. How did you start this? Where did you come up with the idea? What's the inspiration?
Yeah. So actually, like almost 5 years ago now, it's crazy how fast time runs. I met my co-founder, and basically both of us were fascinated by seaweed and the huge potential it has in terms of making a positive impact on the way we eat, on the way we farm and cultivate our food. And our idea back then, and it's still the mission of both companies, which is merged into one, is how can we make seaweed attractive to a mainstream audience, and how can we basically start eating seaweed on a daily basis. And the first company was Ocean Fruit. This is how we started. And back then it was just the two of us. We didn't have a tech team, nothing like this. And we said, okay, where do we start? We need to build a supply chain within Europe. And what would be the first product that people could relate to that's made of seaweed? And then we turned to the sushi space and said, okay, there's this wakame salad. And this could be a first thing that we replicate based on European seaweed, but with a twist. And the first products we launched with Ocean Fruit were seaweed salads in different flavors with beetroot and horseradish, with mustard and dill, really like flavors we know in Europe, but we've never associated or tried in combination with seaweed. And we launched those products quite successfully, actually, in mainly organic supermarket chains, because we realized, okay, this audience who's shopping for organic products already is quite aware of the benefits of seaweed and interested in adding it to their diets. But pretty fast, we came to a natural growth stop, because there are only, so many organic shoppers who can afford buying seaweed salads that were quite expensive and organic on a regular basis. And that's when we actually started thinking about, okay, is there another way, another trick to make people eat seaweed? And this is how we came up with BettaFish. So BettaFish really focuses on making alternative fish products like tuna, like salmon, all these things. And Ocean Fruit is more okay, let's have products made of seaweed, but we're not hiding anything and we're not replicating anything. And BettaFish really focuses on building this Trojan horse, people care about tuna, they like tuna, they don't want to change the way they're cooking. So this is BettaFish, and Ocean Fruit is more whole foods, I would say.
So I was interested to see that you talk not just about seaweed as your kind of input for your product, but regeneratively cultivated seaweed. Where do you source this from, or do you actually grow your own? Are you vertically integrated as a company?
I would say we are vertically integrated from harvest onwards. So we do not cultivate our own seaweed, but we work with the pioneers, in seaweed farming in Europe. So all the seaweed we use comes from Europe, from Norway, Sweden, Ireland, the Netherlands, where we really find these, pioneers, I would say, who've been doing it for over 10 years, some of them, and who are strong believers in that, this is an industry that will definitely grow. But, we don't farm ourselves. We've never planned to build our own farm, because we realized what is actually missing for this industry to take off is the part after the harvest, So up until we came to the stage, most of the seaweed that was cultivated was just taken out of the ocean, frozen, dried, that's it. But if you think about the whole food system and agriculture in general, we never just pick apples and that's it, or potatoes and that's it. We turn potatoes into fries, into potato starch, into whatever. And so we said, okay, instead of doing what everyone else is doing, let's focus on creating this value chain and finding processing methods that really valorize these ingredients to actually turn them into ingredients in the first place that you can use beyond how it's used today. So really that we'll find it in alternative fish, maybe at some point in alternative meat. And this is what we're focusing on.
I had the Irish seaweed farmer Jennifer O'Brien of See and Believe on the show recently. Have you met her before? Have you spoken to her?
I haven't met her yet, but I listened to the episode.
Okay.
So I will not go into all the details why seaweed is so amazing, because everyone should just listen to her episode instead. But yeah, no, I know a lot of people in the seaweed space in Europe, but I haven't met her yet.
And so, but I want to ask you, I mean, she and I talked more generally about the power of seaweed, beyond just from the food side. I mean, I personally love the taste of seaweed. And I remember you mentioned Netherlands, which scans as being kind of a country that's ahead of the curve on this stuff. I remember having the Dutch weed burger, something like 2013 or something. So more than 10 years ago already. And that was definitely innovative back then. But what I want to ask is why, if seaweed tastes good, it's kind of got salty, umami, and it's packed with nutrients. It's easy to grow, it's sustainable. Why don't we see more of it in Western diets? Why do I have to go to a Japanese restaurant to be able to order this on the menu?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, right? I mean, the benefits of seaweed have been clear and obvious and talked about for decades. There's all research shows we should eat more seaweed. It's good for the environment. It's good for our bodies. And this is the real nut to crack, so to say, why people are so hesitant to incorporate these greens. I mean, in the end, they're also just greens, just from the sea, into their day-to-day diets. And I mean, partially, I mentioned the value chain before. So we have not figured out how to incorporate this in our day-to-day foods as parts of the ingredients list. But also, I mean, there was actually a long history and culture to eat seaweed in Europe, specifically in coastal areas. But nobody has yet managed to come up with really exciting dishes, and people are lazy, to be honest. They don't just want to, they don't want to buy the dried seaweed, rehydrate it, chop it, cook it, fermented it until it tastes good and develops the actual flavor profiles that they contain. So I think we need to see more convenience foods around seaweed, and also a more bigger variety of seaweeds, because they all taste different. We know nori and wakame from the sushi restaurant, but there's a seaweed that tastes like truffle, like lemon, like pepper. There's seaweed that's more like spinach, and we need to really combine them with foods we already know, like the flavors I mentioned for the ocean fruit salads, or incorporating it into vegan tuna for it to really pick off.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking of my pantry, which is filled with bags of, 1 kilogram bags of beans that, need to be rehydrated. And I have all these great intentions of making, delicious Mexican dinners and stuff like that. And the one step of rehydrating it over a few hours or overnight is like too big a hurdle for me.
Yeah, exactly. We're lazy. We're also already used to having everything ready to eat, so I don't blame anyone.
Okay, so sticking with not blaming people and not being judgmental, imagine you're at a sushi restaurant with a friend and they're about to order a spicy tuna roll. And so in a non-judgmental, no guilt-tripping way, what would you say to them to make them rethink that next time they think of buying tuna? And this is basically a cloaked way of saying, what's the problem with old-fashioned tuna?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think there is a non-judgmental way I mean, if I have someone sitting across of me, eating tuna, and I'm trying to convince them not to order it the next time, how can I be non-judgmental? But it's a good question. It's a challenge. I would probably start bombarding them with facts, because everyone loves facts.
Everybody loves being bombarded with facts.
Sorry. Okay, maybe not. Okay. But I will share some facts.
Yes, okay. Well, you share some facts and we'll leave the influencing to someone else.
Yeah, exactly. I would just random, really facts. But I would probably start out with saying, hey, did you know tuna is considered the tiger of the ocean? They can swim up to 80 kilometers per hour, which is already insane, I think, 80 kilometers per hour. Did you know that tuna, or the valuable nutrients contained in tuna, actually comes from the fish they feed off and the fish that ate seaweed, So all the ingredients that we actually want from eating fish, or that's considered healthy in fish, actually comes from seaweed. So why eat the fish? I would say something like, Tuna is one of the rare fish species that no one has managed to farm yet. So all the tuna we consume is actually wild caught. I mean, yeah, already going into the judgmental direction. And there are lots of facts about tuna, actually. For example, most tuna fish is caught around 4 years old, but this is usually the time before they're actually able to reproduce. You know, they only start reproducing at like 5 to 6 years. And maybe one more health-related fact is that mercury levels in tuna are not just on an all-time high, but they haven't really changed during the past 5 decades. And this is mostly due to all the fossil fuels that we're using. And I think specifically when we share facts that are directly related to people's personal health, it's usually like a reason for them to maybe reduce the consumption or maybe switch it up the next time. But it's really tough to be non-judgmental here.
I mean, I personally find that the mercury argument goes a lot farther than kind of the destroying the oceans argument, which is a shame in some ways, but whatever works, I guess.
Yeah. We see this a lot that people make the switch because of health reasons first and then start thinking about, okay, what other implications does it have on the food system and on the ocean health?
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. That's really interesting. So they go from the specific to the general kind of with this and think of, I mean, the more people start thinking of health as not, you know, the difference between global health and personal health, but rather how they intersect, I think generally people make better choices for the most part.
Definitely.
Do you, in the last 5 years, have you gained a special affinity for tuna? I mean, do you feel close to this particular fish? Do you feel like you're fighting the good fight on their behalf?
I mean, these are crazy animals, right? They almost have no predators in the sea except for killer whales. I feel like they're super impressive. And I mean, I would love to see like a tuna school, like to see them in real life. I haven't had the opportunity yet. But I really do feel that we are fighting on their behalf.
I hope if you see a school of them in real life, that they, thank you for your work.
And not eat me.
Yeah, maybe a school of tuna is a scary thing, actually. I'm someone who eats a plant-based diet, but I grew up on my mom's tuna fish sandwiches with their crusts cut off. And a few years back at the Food Hack conference in Lausanne, I was super happy to bite into my first BettaFish sandwich. And I haven't had one since. And I wonder how it's changed from then and how you kind of do product development. Are you on version 2.0 right now, or what does that look like?
I mean, first of all, you're based in Vienna and you find the sandwich in every billa. So go to their next billa and get another tuna sandwich. You're really
I should say there's a billa 400 meters from me and there's a spar 100 meters from me. And as you made the point before, people are lazy. I do not exclude myself from that.
Okay. But maybe next time, make a small detour.
Deal.
But yeah, I mean, obviously I love to hear that we kind of brought a little bit of this childhood memories, this nostalgia back into your life. And this is something we hear a lot, that people, when they were young, they had tuna melts, tuna mayo sandwiches, tuna mayo dips, tuna pizza, which is a big thing in Germany. And a lot of people who stopped eating tuna miss this feeling, this nostalgia. And there's something special to the tuna sandwiches. Actually, it's the one product that hasn't changed since day one. And this is crazy. And I made this realization only recently, that first product we put out there, it's a winner. People love the taste. It works perfectly. We haven't changed it at all. But we have iterated the tuna itself still like 1 million times, but for other applications. So what I'm trying to say is for the tuna, we have nailed it from the beginning. Also a lot of work that we put in there, but then adapting it to other applications like the pizza, putting it in a can where you add heat and pressure to the maximum to make it shelf stable. This was a whole different story. And we basically had to reformulate the whole product again and again and again for the different applications. So what you see in the can now is a completely different product than what you see on the sandwich. So it's a bit of both, so the sandwich actually never changed, but the rest changes still to the date. And we are currently launching I would say Tuna 3.0, but in between there were 1 million versions.
And what about product line expansion? Are you going to go beyond how many SKUs do you have right now and where do you see yourself in a year?
Yeah, well, we launched a lot of SKUs, both in retail and food service industry, like big bag and box, 20 kilo sizes, frozen, fresh, shelf stables. And we tested a lot of these SKUs, and now we're actually reducing it a little bit because we saw some are performing better than others, and also, making the tough decision of killing a product and taking it out is super important for us. So, good question. I think we're at 13, 14 SKUs just on the tuna. And then we have actually something new coming up, which is the cell nom. So not salmon, but cell nom. And a little bit of wordplay, just like with the tuna. And it's launching in May, June, roundabout.
Okay. And what kind of product will that be? Is that fillet? Is that smoked salmon?
It's in the direction of smoked salmon, but not like these cold cuts, but a different products. I'm not spoiling too much. It's not going to be the fillet. There are quite a few companies out there who have launched fillets, and we said, okay, this is their turf. We focus on something else.
Okay, interesting. It'll be interesting for Revo here in Vienna to hear about that, I'm sure, as well.
They have a tuna too, so.
That's true, yeah. That's true. I spent some time looking at your online reviews, and it was really interesting to see just, first of all, how passionate people are about this product. I mean, you have really good reviews, very high star rating or whatever it is on things like Trustpilot. And the words that come up a lot are things like taste, texture, smell, essence, as being very tuna-like, or for a lot of people, better. And so I was really interested to see also that there are people who are not vegan, not vegetarian, and actually prefer this for a number of reasons. A lot of them, I think, for kind of climate reasons as well, are interested to make the switch. I'm curious. I mean, a lot of the companies that I talk to on this podcast are B2B companies. You're B2C. When you have an early adopters or a group of early adopters who really love it or who are major promoters, what do you do to build a community around that and kind of keep them and leverage them as promoters?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, building a community is one of the toughest thing there is, because first of all, you need to find your group of people who are really interested in what you're doing and also willing to share their opinion. I read the statistics somewhere that, a lot of the times people, either if they're super excited about a product or disappointed, they still never share it anywhere, So it's really a small fraction of people who are proactively talking about it. If you ask them or don't ask them, they will do it anyway. So this is definitely one of the toughest tasks for us, because also initially we weren't able to have our own shop because we had fresh and frozen products, So how do you get the products out there in front of people? This was the main challenge for us. Like, how do you get the product out there? And for us, this was a lot of, I would say, groundwork, I mean, we attended a lot of events and we sponsored a lot of events. So smaller conference, bigger conferences, food hack, / you name it, student university conferences, and really showed them that, hey, we're here. We have this amazing product. You need to feed people. You are actively trying to do something better here because you're proactively looking for vegan catering, for example. Let's just join forces, And I think our team, our social media team and marketing team are also an exceptionally great job in how they engage with people. And it's a lot of time and a lot of effort that they put in there and have put in there to find these ambassadors that are still strong and big fans.
I say that you're B2C, but I guess also there's a B2B element, and you're probably in food service and different places. One of the pieces that got, I think, the most coverage was about a year and a half ago when Japan Airlines started carrying BettaFish. I guess the tuna sandwiches, was it, on some of their flights? And I wonder if you could talk a bit about how you land a partnership like that and kind of what the fallout, was after that. Did you get other airlines calling you, other companies calling you up afterwards?
Yeah, it's still one of the partnerships I'm the most proud of, to be honest, because, I mean, the reason why we reached out to them is that they have super strong and ambitious sustainability goals, including being net zero by 2050. They have a ton of initiatives within the company, but also on flights, being very strict about single-use packaging, etc. And this is company-wide, So we were super impressed by that. And obviously, I mean, it's a Japanese company. And as a Japanese company, they have, I would say, the best knowledge of seaweed and tuna. There's such a long history and heritage in eating both that we were super intrigued in just reaching out to them and getting their feedback. It was just like, hey, what do you think? Is this actually a replacement, or what is missing? So we started working with their team in London, and they were huge fans right away. And they pulled it off, or that they created a menu with a vegan tuna wrap. Now it's a vegan tuna onigiri to serve it on flights from London to Tokyo and back in first and business class.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, that could go either way in some ways also, right? If a country has a really long tradition of a particular type of food, that can make them both either resistant or accepting of kind of innovation on that. And so, I mean, this is being played out quite a bit with cultivated meat around the world. And you look at Italy, which has just banned it and trying to kind of make this about, their food history and blah, blah, blah. But so, I mean, it's great to see that a company like Japan Airlines, which is, obviously a flagship of Japanese society, to accept this wholeheartedly. Are you expanding to other airlines as well?
We are in touch with other airlines. There's no decision made yet. Also, when you start looking into the whole food service industry, it works completely different from the retail industry. And most of the menu decisions are made locally at their hubs, at the main hubs. So, and a lot of food actually for their flights is made in the hubs, and then all the flights going out from there. So obviously there are logistical challenges there. You first need to get the product to their hubs instead of going to the individual locations and ports. And then you have to see and understand their audience. Does the tuna, for example, is big, for example, if we're talking about the Middle East, but it's not as big as in Europe or in North America. So does it actually fit their menu, or would a salmon fit actually better? There's so many things that you need to think about and have the right match. So we're in talks, let's see. And we see a lot of good collaborations popping up from different airlines with new products. And hopefully we hope to get on more flights soon.
What about things like company canteens or university, what do they call them, mensas or something like that here in Europe? I can imagine that there would be a lot of demand in places like this, especially hopefully with the younger generation.
Totally. And this is something, for example, we underestimated initially, like how big the catering, like the Betriebskantinen they're called, the canteens within the companies, how big this business is, how many meals they make every day, how many people they feed every day. And yeah, you mentioned the student mensas, the student canteens, and we have quite a few of them who incorporate our products already on their menus. I think next week there's another promotion in Berlin, so everyone who's in Berlin should go to Berlin. And there are also quite a few canteens who go fully vegan or majority vegan. So this is really exciting and also helps us to get the product out into in front of many more people. Dussmann, for example, is one of the bigger wholesalers. Dussmann, Metro, Chescolina, we work with all of them.
Amazing. And grocery stores. So grocery store chains are getting better and better with their plant-based selection. As I mentioned, a Spar customer just because of its proximity. But yesterday we're recording this just before Easter weekend, and I bought vegan Lindt chocolate eggs, which unfortunately won't make it through to the Easter weekend. But they were literally not on the shelf the day before. And Easter chocolate has been there for weeks and weeks. So it's not that this just came out, it's not seasonal, but that product literally is one day old on the shelves there. Can you talk a bit about some of the trends? I mean, you're seeing this from a very up close and personal. What are some of the trends with grocery stores going more plant-based?
Ooh, that's a tough question, to be honest. Because it feels like the trends change every day, or the mood changes every day. I mean, after the hype in 2022, we had kind of tough year in 2023. I think that's not a secret. A lot of companies told and mentioned that sales weren't great in 2023. So we see a lot of hesitation on the retailer side because, I mean, it depends, right? There's some buyers who are personally not a fan and a believer in the plant-based sector, and that's why they're hesitant to just put it out there. But we also see a lot of buyers who are believers in this and who want to make a difference and want to make a change. But maybe within their organization, it's not on the highest agenda yet. So, I mean, they're in a dilemma, right? They want to put the products out there, but they're not performing as the meat alternatives or the animal versions yet. So they have the goals that they need to reach. and they usually can't reach them with just plant-based products. So that we see this dilemma as well. And I think we need more retailers who are really putting this high up in the agenda and making this a company priority, because then all these teams together can work towards these goals, right? And BettaF, for example, is one of the companies who have made this top priority to grow this sector. And this is why also the buyers get to a table together and make decisions, and not just based on, what is performing well. So this is one big trend. And maybe that's also the reason why only plant-based Easter eggs come into the shelves last minute, because it's like, okay, what's happening here? But another trend I see as well is that some of the buyers are disappointed by the quality of products. I mean, in the past 2 years, we have seen a lot of products who are just another copy of something, and that are using just the same ingredients that are being used, no matter if it's plant-based bacon, plant-based chicken, plant-based cheese, it's all the same ingredients. And obviously you can see this in sales numbers, because if it tastes the same, it's not exciting anymore. And it also doesn't bring a lot of value to the customers anymore. So we have a lot of talks with buyers who are super excited that we are using seaweed in our products, and that this is really making a difference and bringing a more complex flavor profile to our products.
Yeah, there's a plant-based schnitzel, Wiener Schnitzel here on the market, and I've tried it a couple of times. And I can guarantee you it's not going to win anyone over from it.
See? Yeah.
I can't believe, I think we saw this over the past couple of years, that there were some very mediocre products out on the market in the plant-based space. And some of it's, just straight up mediocrity. In other cases, it's investors pushing companies to have something on the market before they're ready. And so both of these things are kind of to blame. And there's been a bit of a bloodbath, a vegan bloodbath of these things, some of these products going the way of the dodo. And maybe that's healthy, right? This is all kind of normal for new market development. But I've definitely seen that shake out quite a bit, and it's probably not over yet. And you're in 5 countries right now, or at least the last time I checked, you might be in more than that right now. Do you want to let us know where you're available and where you're expanding next?
Yeah, so we are actually available in 10 different European countries, which is crazy to think about. So it's German-speaking countries, Germany, Austria, Switzerland. It's the Netherlands, Estonia, Greece, France, Spain, Italy, and we just got a listing in Lithuania and Czechia as well.
Nice.
So not necessarily the markets where people would say, okay, these are super big and plant-based, but they're catching up, and they don't have a lot of local companies sometimes. So they're really looking forward to importing them. I would still say our main focus is the German-speaking countries, because also they are the biggest markets for plant-based products. It's our home turf here in Germany, but we see really good tractions in the other countries. And still, there's still a lot of fish lovers to convert. Not everyone has made the switch yet. So we will stay in Europe for now. There's still a lot of room to grow for us. But we are putting our feelers out there, a little bit more remote already. But also they're not necessarily the countries where like typical food tech startup would look, like US, Singapore. That's not the countries we're aiming at. So, but I can't spoil too much yet.
Okay. Well, I was in Warsaw not too long ago, and I was super amazed at the number of vegan restaurants there. And then somebody told me that Warsaw is, after Berlin, the most vegan, or, highest percentage of vegan restaurants in Europe. So it's plenty of surprises in this space, right? You never know. And who would have guessed that Japan Airlines would be interested in trialing and adopting a plant-based tuna? But there you have it. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you think listeners would be interested to hear about?
We talked a lot about our products, right? About how the market is evolving. But maybe we can talk just a second about the R&D behind it, because I touched upon this a little bit, but how are we actually doing this? How are we turning seaweed into vegan tuna? And this is really the core of the tech team in our company. So most of the time they are working with a lot of different seaweed species and looking into the seaweed species individually, looking into, are there already processing methods out there that we can use? What happens to the seaweed if we apply those processing methods? And also what happens if we combine these seaweed species then and seaweed ingredients at another level of their processing step. So what we are actually trying to build is kind of a toolbox of seaweed ingredients, and BettaFish with the tuna and the salmon is just the first step for us, because we had these ingredients already developed a couple of years back, but nobody wanted to buy it. I mean, nobody believed that you can scale seaweed, that you can turn it into a mainstream thing, that people will be willing to pay for it. But this is the core of the R&D that we're doing. And we are super excited now to start working with more industry players so they can incorporate the seaweed in their own products. So yeah, it's a bit of mix of B2B and B2C. And we are always looking for new talent in the biotech, food tech space to join our team and drive forward this innovation.
And if those people are listening right now, where should they find you online?
They should go to bettafish.co or any social media channel, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever floats their boat, and reach out to us. Happy to chat when they're in Berlin, happy to meet up and let us know, what kind of role they're looking for. And then let's take it from there.
Amazing. Deniz, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another ClimateTech podcast. It would mean a lot if you would subscribe, rate, and share this podcast. Get in touch anytime with tips and guest recommendations at hello@climatetechpod.com. Find me, Ryan Grant Little, on LinkedIn. I'll be back with another episode next week. Bye for now.